Hi guys, this is C here today. So some of you may know and some of you may not know that I am a licensed cosmetologist and used to work in a salon, and then I did hair for a while out of my basement. But since we moved, I have retired from hair, except for all my family. We're gonna do a haircut on Ella today, and I know a lot of you are stuck at home. So I'm just gonna show how to do a simple one length haircut, and then I'm gonna add a few layers into the bottom of it. That's just gonna take a little bit of weight off of Ella's hair and make it so that it moves really nicely for her, and will also make it easier for her to brush. So we are going to cut Ella's hair, and then if you want to hop over to our family channel, you can watch.
Oh, I hopped over to the family channel just now, didn't I?
Jonathan cut my hair. Does it look even?
No. This is more than I was originally thinking we would cut off.
You're not holding it the right way. I'm gonna have a bob. Because we did.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So we're gonna start with sectioning. I like to use a wider tooth comb for sectioning, but if your client has a natural part, you can go off of that, or you can part right down the middle. Just kind of depends. Ella always parts her hair like this, so I tend to work off of her part. And I'm just gonna straighten it up for her. And then for the back here, if you want to come around to the back, we're gonna part from the crown to the nape. So the nape is what we call the neck, and you want to get right down to the bottom of the hairline, so just a straight part down. And I have some little handy dandy metal clips. If you don't have these, you can use regular, just good old alligator clips. And we're just gonna clip this side out of the way.
Oh, by the way, if you hear any strange noises, it's this little girl right here. She's just watching in the background.
It's our little mascot. So, and then we're gonna take our next section, and we're going to go from the top of the head, from our part, down to right behind the ear. And I find a really good way to part. I use my pointer finger on the tip of the comb, and then my other finger marking where I want to meet, and it just helps me meet right up exactly where I want to go. So I'm going right behind her ear, and we're gonna section this off and section the front. So for your one length haircuts, you're gonna work off of 4 sections basically. And the reason that we are parting this way, 1, working with less hair is a lot easier. 2, it allows me to get really straight cuts into the hair to use as a guide as I go up this head. And we part this out because the ear, there's not hair down here, so I'm gonna work on that separately once I get this hair up into here cut, so that I've got a good guide going on. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. If you are cutting hair at home, it's important to either do it when it's all the way dry or all the way wet. Hair when it is wet is more elastic and will stretch further. So if you are cutting hair and part of it's wet and part of it is dry, then some of the hair will stretch further than other hair, and you'll end up with an uneven haircut because some of it stretched farther than others. So we're going to do about 1 inch. Some combs that you get, actually, if you will look really closely, they will have marks, tick marks on them. This one doesn't, but I know that on mine, about 4, is that 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. 5th one is about 1 inch, so I kind of use that to measure. So we're gonna work off of our center part, and we're gonna go at about 1 inch at a time as far as a bigger section. So I'm gonna start, this is the occipital bone. So your occipital bone, you can feel it's that part where your head starts to jut out and there's kind of a hollow spot there. So we're gonna work off of that. So we're gonna go just under the occipital, and we're gonna do a slightly diagonal part coming over again. I'm hitting my finger, I've got my finger in my part, it just makes it easier to go. Okay, so we're gonna go right over like that. And we're gonna clip this up out of the way. And then I'm gonna mimic that part on the other side.
You're used to your mom doing this, aren't you?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a haircut that wasn't your mom?
If I have, probably one time.
Yeah, one time when we were living at my mom and papa's, remember?
You know, this is actually a pretty good hairstyle for you right now. It's kind of a Star Wars.
Reminiscent, yeah, I was gonna say. We have this section. It's not too thick, not too thin. If you're someone that has really wavy hair or really curly hair, you might want to straighten your hair beforehand or do it wet. Ella's is pretty straight, so I'm not worried about that. So I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna make my first cut. I'm gonna start in the middle of the section and then work my way to the outsides. And I'm going to have Ella tilt her head down just a little bit. And what that does in this is it flattens out this part where it's rounded from her bone structure. So we're gonna go in, comb it down, right here in the middle, and I'm gonna take that first inch off and give myself a good guide. When you're cutting, a good rule of thumb or rule of finger is don't cut past your second knuckle. The flesh of your finger kind of bows out there and it's really easy to cut yourself. So you never cut past your second knuckle. If you don't have hair shears at home, you can use regular scissors. It's preferable to use hair shears just because they are so sharp that they don't actually split the hair while they're cutting them. But if you don't, that's okay. Just make sure you're using some of your sharpest scissors. And if you're noticing that you're cutting and it's bending the hair, when you're cutting and not actually cutting it, then they're not sharp enough. So once you're done with the section, you can take both sides. You want to pull them straight down and make sure that your fingers are even. You also want to make sure that the person that you're cutting is sitting even. With Ella's hair being longer than her shoulders, it's not as big a deal if she has her legs crossed or anything, but if you are cutting above the shoulders, sitting with your legs crossed makes your shoulders askew, so it can make your hair cut crooked. But okay, so from this point forward, I'm not gonna have her tilt her head down because otherwise when it tilts back up, her hair is gonna grow. So what I'm gonna do now is that I've got her hair up and I have that all nice and flat. I'm just gonna go back through and make sure that I don't have any pieces that are sticking out slightly longer or any rounded curves because of the curvature of her head. So we've got our first section done. We're just gonna repeat this a couple times until we get up past the occipital into right around the same line of her ear. So we're gonna take my next section again. It's always better to work in smaller sections. I know it might feel like it takes longer, but your lines will be a lot straighter and your haircut will turn out much more nicely. So now we've got our second section down, what you're gonna do is same thing that we did, but now you have a guide to go off of. So we're gonna comb straight down and then you're gonna be able to flip the hair up and you can see, there's our guide right there. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
So that's your guide that you're gonna go off of. So you're gonna pull down, flip up, see where you need to cut, and make your cut. So pull down, flip up, make sure you're right with in line with your guide, and go over. One length cuts are actually one of the hardest cuts to do.
Oh, I can cut multiple lengths very easily.
Layers are a lot more forgiving. One length is actually pretty hard, so don't be discouraged if you find that it's a little choppy or not quite as straight as you would like. That's why it's good to go slow in small sections. You can check yourself a lot along the way. All right, so we're up to the next section. Again, we're gonna do the same thing. Just gonna go comb it down, flip it up, check for our guide, and cut. So you'll notice as I'm taking my sections, as I'm getting higher in the hair, they're getting a little more angled. It's because the where I'm going with them is right here at this point. So I'm gonna start getting smaller angles and I will start working up through here, but for right now, they're gonna be slightly more angled in my sectioning. So all right, so Ella's looking pretty good back here. You can start to see we're getting really nice, even. Don't have any random parts sticking out. It's good to let it just hang in its normal gravity too and kind of move it around, make sure that you're not seeing anything. And again, we're checking every section, lining it up and making sure that we're even, because there's nothing worse than getting done and having a completely off haircut, because then you have to go back in and fix it. So, all right, so we're only gonna have a couple more sections up here, and then I'm gonna be working on the sides. So, all right, so this is our last top section. Ella's hair, as we've gotten up into these top sections, is longer in the middle than on the sides, and that's completely normal. Hair tends to kind of grow actually concave, and so you don't let that freak you out if you find that you are taking up more off in the middle than on the sides, because that is how hair tends to grow. It also tends to grow faster in this back section of the hair because it's like a nice little greenhouse back here. It stays warm and moist, and it doesn't get exposed to the elements as much. So you'll find that it tends to grow quicker in the back. So that's one of the reasons you end up with that concave shape. So just don't freak out if you find that you start taking a lot more off in the middle than on the sides. Just go by your guide. You've cut it in, you know it's straight, and you should be fine. So even though we are going to be putting layers in Ella's hair eventually, we want to get our perimeter in first. That's what you call the very bottom of the hair. So you want to get your base length in first. So I've taken down the side. You can tell it's not nearly as much hair because we don't have all this hair like she does in the back where her ear is. You also want to be careful with the ear because the ear makes the hair pop out. So you don't want to go over the ear with that, because then when you let go, it'll either be too short or too long. So we're going to work on either side of the ear, and I'm going to start on this side because it's lesser hair. So we're going to part kind of right in the middle to the top of the ear, and I'll pull this hair to the front and this hair kind of to the back. And then I'll move some of this hair in front of the ear to be my guide. So I'm gonna pull it back behind here, and we're gonna just bring it down and line it up with that guide right from the back. It's just gonna follow it right around. You also don't wanna work over here on the shoulder. You wanna bring it back behind the shoulder, and then you can bring it forward. If you work over here, again, it's gonna be too long or too short because you're working off of a rounded shoulder there. So I'm just gonna bring it back here. Okay, and then I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna part again, bring this that I just cut, I'm gonna bring it forward, in front of you. I'm gonna bring it forward in front of the ear.
Now, are you doing anything as an experienced stylist that you wouldn't want somebody who wasn't experienced doing?
No. This is exactly how I learned to cut hair. This is one of the first haircuts we had to master and do. And, even though it is hard, it's good to start off with because it's all your basic skills. So there's nothing in here that you shouldn't do. I fully believe that anybody can cut hair if they know what they're doing. I used to cut hair before I knew what I was doing. I ran a salon in college. We went to a private school. It was a Christian school, so we had curfew, so I called it curfew cuts. And a lot of people let me chop off their hair way long before I knew what I was doing at all. And when I got into hair school, I was really horrified that they had let me cut their hair, because then I learned all the things that I did wrong. So over on the other side, doing the same thing. I did section this just because this is a thicker section because she parts over here. Now, if you are someone that doesn't always part to one side, when you get up to the top, you'll want to part it in the middle. And I'll show you what I'll do, because I am going to do it some to Ella just because it's not, that way if she doesn't part it exactly where I have it, it will work out. So we have completed the perimeter of her hair. One thing I'm going to do, just in case she doesn't part it exactly this spot that I have it, although she really does always part it there, is I'm going to take this hair and I'm going to flip it to the other side, because the hair that is over here is traveling further to get to this line than the hair that's here or here. So I'm gonna pull it over here, and you'll notice that we have this small section that is, you can see that is longer. So we're just gonna snip that off. So then that way, if she doesn't part exactly on the part, she doesn't flip her hair over to the other side, or when she's out running around and comes back in, that she ends up with these weird long hairs hanging out over here. So, all right, so if you stop there, you have a really nice one length haircut. I would say to go back through, just check everything, make sure you don't have any stragglers hanging out, move the hair around a little bit, because we don't all walk around without our hair moving. Our hair moves. So move it around, shake it around, make sure you don't have any little ones. Like I'm noticing that I have a couple that have moved around.
What?
That I'm just, I know.
And you call yourself a hairstylist?
I know. So we're just gonna move it around, make sure we don't have any stragglers.
And cha-cha real smooth.
Okay, and that would be where you stop if you just want to do a one length haircut. So what we're gonna do is we are going to do some really simple long layers. So if you just want a few layers in the bottom of your hair, ask for long layers. I only want about, let's say the last 2 to 3 inches of Ella's hair to be layered. So I'm not gonna cut off any more than 2 to 3 inches. And all you're gonna do is you're gonna start up in the crown of the head and we're gonna take a little strip in the crown. Okay, so we are gonna do some long layers in Ella's hair. So I've taken a small section out of right in the crown of her hair, and that's what I'm gonna cut first for my guide. So as you can see, this hair that comes down here has to travel a lot farther than say this hair that comes down here to get to this point. So that's how we're gonna make our layers, is where you're gonna cut that hair and give it a different shape. So I'm gonna measure, I want this to hit right about in there, so I'm gonna take off about that much of her hair. So we're gonna comb it straight up. And I'm gonna do what's called point cutting, and that means that I'm not gonna cut straight across, I'm going to cut towards my fingers. If you are not comfortable doing that, you can just cut straight across, don't worry about it. So if you wanna look, you can see where that just puts some light layering in her hair. So to complete that, we're gonna we're gonna grab a section on the side. We're gonna use part of our guide because we're gonna move around the head. We're gonna pull it straight up again. And then I have my guide hair in there. You see the guide hair there?
I do see the guide hair. Right here is the guide hair, and yeah.
And we're just gonna cut right along with the guide. The biggest thing when you're layering is just to make sure you're going with your comb and you're getting all the hair all going up or out or whichever way you're layering. So if you don't have all the hair straight, similar to if you have some hair wet and some not wet, then you don't end up cutting everything the way it's supposed to be. So I'm pulling all of the hair, like this is my point that I'm working off of. So I'm pulling everything up. If you imagine like a cone coming off of Bella's head, pulling everything up into this cone. Now I'm gonna do a light layer around the front, face framing layer, and basically all that is you've got your perimeter in here, you're just gonna cut the corner off. That's the secret to the face framing layers. You're just basically cutting the corner off of the front. You can do slide cutting, which is where you comb it and you slide down the hair. But I'm guessing most of you at home don't have super sharp shears, and if you try to do that with regular scissors, the person whose hair you're cutting is gonna hit you because it hurts. So you can just take it and you can hold it and just cut the corner off. I'm not doing a really sharp angle, so because we don't want really short layers up around your face, do it, Ella. The corners off there. Alright, so we've put just some light layering in the back, nothing crazy, just enough to give it some movement. Put some little bit of layering around the face. Frame that pretty face of yours, and we're going to check and make sure we're even here, so I need you to sit really straight. We're going to pull it out, and I go by feel, not really by look. I just kind of feel if my hands are even, so I don't even look. But it is good to have a mirror in front of you so you can see. Feel pretty even all the way around. What do you think? Feel good? Feel better? Hopefully a bit easier to brush. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us for hair cutting with Mrs. C. If you guys like this video and you would like to see more tips on hair cutting, you can let me know. Or if you want to know something specific, drop a question in the comments. I'm happy to answer. I'll try to be as specific as I can. It's hard to give advice over the internet when I can't see your hair, but I will do my best. So click subscribe if you don't mind. You can also go to my Instagram, Love Mrs. C, and follow me on Facebook. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.